20th, and it is 6 o'clock sharp, so we'll start with flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll introduce myself. I am Dan Burke. I'm the chair of the Douglas County Planning Commission. I'll start my far left and allow each commissioner to introduce themselves.
Brent Atkinson.
Jacob Gibbs.
Tim Allen.
Dorena Guido.
Andy Owens.
Michael Whitmer.
Okay, there is a sign-in sheet in the back along with agendas. If you'd like to speak tonight, please make sure you sign in on that sheet. The first action item is going to be the approval for the May 16th minutes. If anyone's had a chance to review those, hopefully everyone has, and I can get a motion.
Motion to approve the May 16th minutes.
Second.
I moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, none being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Nay.
abstain, I wasn't
Abstain, I
there.
wasn't here.
Okay, 2 abstains. Okay.
So that, for the record, abstention by Brent and Dorena.
And the first action item is the finding of facts for Karina and Brent Harvey, Planning Department file number 22065. It was back from remand from Luba. So looking for a motion for approval.
I would move to accept the findings of fact.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those abstaining?
I abstain, Dorena
Brent.
Guido.
Abstains.
No nays, right? Okay. Now we have our quasi judicial hearing with Douglas County Land Department Planning Member File number 24036. Do we have any conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, or site visits? Being heard. Qualified party list on this one, Jeff?
I did not prepare one based on the lack of responses. There was just one response from Fish and Wildlife, but
Okay.
so we didn't really have any parties.
Okay, and do we have any in the audience that would like to speak to this today? In favor?
I would.
Okay. Can you state your name real quick?
I'm Tony Page, Douglas County Land Department.
Okay,
About an hour away from.
you can come up later. We'll just make sure that you're already on there. Does anyone else want to speak tonight? No? Okay. Staff report.
I'm gonna enter into the record staff exhibits 1 through 12.
Thank you.
Before you tonight, the applicant, Douglas County Land Department, is requesting a comprehensive plan amendment from high-density residential and public, semi-public, reserved to tourist commercial, together with a zone change from R2 multifamily residential and PR public reserve to CT tourist commercial on a 2.35 plus or minus acre portion of 3.13 acres under county ownership, consisting of 2 units of land located on the east side of Salmon Harbor Drive and west of Lighthouse Road. The properties lie within the Winchester Bay urban unincorporated area and are currently vacant of structures. The purpose of the application is to allow for a change in zone to allow for construction of phase 3 of the Umpqua Dunes RV Park, owned and operated by the Parks Department. Uses permitted conditionally in the CT zone include recreational parks subject to the provisions of section 2.060.1 and article 39 of the LUDO. Upon approval of this plan amendment and zone change, the Parks Department intends to submit for consideration a conditional use application for the expansion of the existing Umpqua Dunes RV park. Pluto, section 6.500 establishes the procedures for processing quasi judicial comprehensive plan amendments and sets forth the applicable criteria as follows. The application shall address the following requirements which shall be standard for amendment. That the amendment complies with the statewide planning goals and applicable administrative rules, including OAR 660-12, the Transportation Planning Rule, adopted by the Land Conservation and Development Commission pursuant to ORS 197-240, or as revised pursuant to 197-245. B, that the amendment provides a reasonable opportunity to satisfy a local need for a different land use. A demonstration of need for the change may be based upon special studies or other factual information. C, that the particular property in question is suited to the proposed land use, and if an exception is involved, that the property in question is best suited for the use as compared to other available properties. This plan amendment request does not request exceptions to be taken to any of the statewide planning goals. The request creates an opportunity for a modification to a single plan designation with tourist commercial zoning to better fit with the commercial recreational use of the area and the recreational opportunities associated with the natural dune structures available on the southern Oregon coast. The property to the west of the subject property, also owned by Douglas County, is currently designated public, semi-public, and zoned public reserve. As it stands today, that designation and zoning would support a partial expansion of the Umpqua Dunes RV Park as an outright permitted use, but without the opportunity for any ancillary commercial business ventures that would be allowed under the CT designation and zoning that could greatly enhance the area. The residentially zoned portion of that unit of land lies sandwiched in the middle of the PR zoning to the west and the CT zoning to the east. Therefore, the highest and best use of the subject property is expansion of the RV park under requested plan amendment and zone change. Furthermore, the majority of residential development within the Winchester Bay UUA is more than a mile to the northeast of the subject property. The applicant has demonstrated that the loss of 2.32 acres of residential land in this specific area will not significantly impact the housing needs in the Winchester Bay UUA. The applicant asserts that removal of portions of these 2 units of land from residential zoning would not prevent Winchester Bay from accommodating its housing needs. The applicant further asserts that with the subject property abutting both tourist, commercial, and public reserves, and its specific location with the abutting existing development of commercial tourist structures and uses, the benefit of redesignating the subject site for tourist commercial use outweighs the loss of eliminating R2 zone portions of the 2 units of land from the housing inventory. In a plan amendment request, the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed amendment provides a reasonable opportunity to satisfy a local need for a different land use, and that the property for which the amendment is proposed is suited to the use. If the plan amendment and zone change are approved, the applicant intends to utilize the subject site for expansion of the RV park and uses associated with the Umpqua Lighthouse Museum. The intended use of the 2 units of land would be consistent with the requested plan and zone. The proposed plan amendment and zone change will provide a reasonable opportunity to satisfy a local need for a different land use on the subject site than residential use. It will also provide consistency between the plan designations and the zones by taking the 2 units of land to a single plan designation and single zone. As far as site suitability, Ludo section 6.500 requires that the property proposed for amendment be suited to the proposed land use, and if an exception is involved, that the property is best suited for the proposed use as compared to other available properties. The subject properties are located in the Winchester Bay UUA, and the requested application does not involve any exceptions. The purpose of the zone change is to facilitate new commercial tourist use of the subject properties according to the standards provided in the zone. The properties are within the UUA of Winchester Bay, and there are existing water and sewer lines located near the subject property. Your zone change criteria in relevant part has you looking at whether the zoning will conform to the applicable sections of the comprehensive plan, that the site is suitable to the proposed land use, and that there has been a conscious consideration of public health, safety, and welfare in applying the specific zone regulations. Ludo Article 38 requires the applicant to address general consistency of the proposed zone designation with the comprehensive plan. The applicant has addressed consistency with the plan and site suitability, as well as the promotion of general public health, safety, and welfare as provided for in the findings of the staff report. Conformity with the comprehensive plan designation would be accomplished by the plan amendment addressed above. The subject properties are well suited for the proposed CT zoning due to the current pattern of zoning in the area, access and availability of public facilities and services. As to public health, safety, and welfare, the subject property is served by the Winchester Bay Rural Fire Protection District, which maintains a fire station within the Winchester Bay UUA. The subject property is generally flat, and the 2 units of land are not within a natural hazard area, including FEMA floodplain, Dagami landslide landslide susceptibility, and DSL statewide wetlands inventory. Additionally, the ability to develop a recreational feature with quick disconnects such as RVs provides a public health, safety, and welfare opportunity by not creating permanent housing near a tsunami inundation zone. Based upon the findings outlined in the staff report, planning staff recommends approval of the requested comprehensive plan amendment from high-density residential and public, semi-public to tourist commercial on the 2.35 acre portion of the 2 units of land, and a zone change from R2 multifamily residential, MPR public reserve to CT tourist commercial on that 2.35 acres of land, acres of the 2 units of land that are not already zoned tourist commercial, which meets the criteria of Chapter 6 and Chapter 3, Article 38 of the Ludo. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you so much. All right, this time the applicant or applicant's representative can come up and state your name and your address, please.
Tony Page, Douglas County Land Department, 1036 Southeast Douglas, representing the county.
Thank you.
Put the map up here outside.
I thought it was a trick question, thank you.
Throw you off a little bit. So I'm representing the Parks Museum and the Land Department here, and I'd like to talk about briefly the benefits of this zone change for the Umpqua Dunes RV Park and Campground and the museum property that's adjoining it. There's a great potential for recreational usage here and benefits to the county, Salmon Harbor, the city of Reedsport, the citizens, the business owners, and the recreational community for developing these properties with commercial tourist zoning. Currently as seen here, this is the 2 acres that is adjoining the Umpqua Dunes campground. It's nothing more than, sagebrush and sand. Since Douglas County owns these, there are never gonna be any residential developments on anything in this area. Up here is the museum, store, and the lighthouse, and the Coast Guard. So, there's a much needed expansion that is needed here for the park, and they want to put in 25 to 30 new spaces in this area here. So it would be a great benefit to have this commercial tourist zoning, because PR is much more restrictive. It would allow them to create more income stream for the community, more spaces. This is kind of the crown jewel of the whole county, Salmon Harbor area. With the, have anybody, you been over there? So it's pretty nice with the new store with the clear gas and the propane and the hot food and the laundromat and the new restrooms. And so, the more draw, the nicer that we have it over here, I think the more appeal it will be to increase the revenues over in that area, get more people to come over. From a commercial, standpoint, from an appraiser, I'm also head appraiser for the county. It makes sense from highest and best use standpoint that this property would be commercial tourist from a development standpoint to maximize its potentials. I think the most logical use is commercial, and we know that, this area relies heavily on recreation because there's not a lot of industry over there. So I think the more recreational use and benefit that we could have there from commercial use would benefit everybody in that area. So with the commercial grounds here developed and the additional RV spots, we're not taking anything of real value here. It's expanding out on the sand dune there, and it will increase the recreational draw and the reputation of the community to bring more businesses over. This park has a lot going for it. It's got high output Wi-Fi, ATV repair shop, the laundromat, showers. It's currently got 62 full hookup sites, back-end pull-through sites that are 90 feet long, 3 group campsites, 5 cabins. They have electric fireplace, lighting, refrigerators, microwaves. So great views, access to crabbing and beach access. So I think that given all that we've seen, that it's logical to make it commercial tourist. So, as well as the parcel above it that was purchased by the county. It's 0.088 acres. There's 4 sewer hookups, 4 water hookups, but it's just kind of a parking lot right now. It would make sense, I think, to have it commercial tourist also, and then it's a possibility that some people that work at the Coast Guard or the lighthouse, the museum, could stay there on RVs and utilize that beneficially. So since it's surrounded by commercial tourism, I'm asking that you take it into consideration and change the zone. So if you have any questions for me.
What are the 2 buildings below this? You mentioned the store and stuff. What are the ones,
The store here.
so go up from there,
The condominiums.
Oh, okay.
those 2.
Those are condominiums right there, and their property line is here. So, residential area that will side of there.
What is county owned? What is all?
This is county owned. All this is county
Okay.
owned. And on the other side, 8 acres. So museum and the it's up here, corner, go over what. It's just above that.
So besides the condominiums, everything's pretty much county owned.
Everything's, yeah, it's pretty commercial. This is the museum store, and then they've got some RV spots.
What's the name of the RV park? What's the name of the RV park?
The Umpqua Dunes RV Park and Campground. Okay.
And I guess if I might, just on that aerial there, the way it's oriented, the property to the right was what I was referring to as the PR zone property owned by Douglas County.
Who actually owns the sand? Is that state owned? The dunes out going?
Douglas County.
No, Douglas County owns the abutting portion of the sand to the right in this photo. If you go further up from this photo, thanks
It's actually
Tony for the
south.
north-south. Don't
Don't
change it now.
Don't change it now, yeah.
Don't change it now. Further up from there, then it becomes federal or state.
I'll be like that away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's state and federal up above that, so you've got the overlook.
That's
Beach and rails and the overlook sits right up here, so.
Does anyone else have any other questions for the applicant at this point?
Yeah, did you mention, did the county recently acquire these parcels?
We've had, this parcel, I think since the seventies, this parcel we acquired a couple years ago, so. There was a deceased owner that owned it. It was originally a commercial parcel and they changed it with the anticipation of putting multifamily there. They never did anything with it. We bought it from the heirs, so they were using it as a hip camp for RV spots. So, that's why they have the hookups for the RV, water and sewer.
Is there anything with the zone change that preclude the county from selling that property after a zone change?
Well, we purchased it for use to keep and we'll definitely, the parks property will be a, dedicated park, so it can never be sold for anything, but,
Parks, okay.
so.
Real quick questions, I saw you guys got approval from ODOT or they had no comment, but I did see a letter in here from the state of Oregon as far as the some engagement on the, what is it, the critical habitat or something, can you talk about that a little bit, or?
I can't speak on the critical habitat portion of it, I defer to the planning department on that.
Even though it doesn't sound like that, this is not incorporated in that, it sounds like they're just, or give me clarification.
It's not incorporated in that, and the request is for the plan amendment and zone change. So there's no structural development requested in this action. When the Parks Department submits its conditional use permit application for consideration, then that will define the number of RV spaces, where things are engineered to be, where group campsites would be, and ODFW would get the same notification relative to that application and would have a further opportunity to comment.
Perfect.
Oh, I have one more question. And this gets to public safety and welfare. I was just curious if there's any data on public safety or the difference between managed sites like the campground versus the less managed camping areas, if you had any information or insights on safety or
Well,
conflicts
I
of
think it's
people.
from a safety standpoint, it's managed well, there's people on site that, watch it, so there's not gonna be fire hazards. There is a dune rescue building that is owned by the Parks Department, or ran by the Parks Department also, with a cell phone tower just down the street from this, so they have a dune rescue operation that goes out from there, so
Maybe
that's-
another way of asking the question is, do you find that safety and welfare is more accessible or more consistent in a managed campground area versus an unmanaged campground area?
It definitely is, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna take this down, or do you wanna, discussion?
I just leave it out there.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, we have anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. I don't think he needs to have any more time for a rebuttal. He doesn't have anyone. So I'm gonna close this public portion and we can have a discussion about this. Seems like a pretty good project here. Yeah.
Make the motion to approve the staff recommendations as is.
Okay, have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second, any other discussion?
Recording in progress.
Fine.
Any other discussion? Okay, none being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so unanimous. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
if I might, anticipating no opposition to the action, I have proposed findings.
Have this
I'll give you a chance to
for you.
read it.
You more, that's this one.
So everyone's had a chance to review and look for a motion. Regarding the finding of facts for Douglas County Land Department Comprehensive
Plan ahead.
Planning Department File Number 24036.
I'll make a motion to approve finding of fact.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any other discussion, questions? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, do we have any business from the audience tonight? And business from the planning commission? Anything? Okay. Jeff, planning department?
Well, do we,
Oh,
We had the
wait, we
leg-
have a,
we have the
yep,
legislative hearing, or, I mean, but
what? I jumped the gun,
I'm gonna go.
let me find my notes here. I was just trying to steamroll us ahead. Alright, back up. Ouch. Alright, we're gonna go into a legislative hearing for the amendments to the Douglas County Land Use and Development Ordinance. Sorry about that, Jeff. Okay, just wanna,
All right, before you, I have some amendments. These are, what I would characterize as off-cycle in that it's not part of a legislative session. A little bit of housekeeping with these amendments. And so they're fairly short and sweet. So kind of characterize these as amendments to improve the effectiveness of the land use and development ordinance. So the first one that's proposed relates to farm uses in the rural residential zones. And it's a proposed revision to allow greater flexibility for owners of rural properties with respect to a larger size or a building accessory to a farm use in order to accommodate farm animals, such as a animal or fowl shelter. What we have proposed is a new use and the rural residential zones. So starting off with the first of those is the 5R, rural residential 5-acre zone, and we're proposing to add an additional use that would read as follows: building accessory to a farm use, such as animal or fowl shelter, or similar and related accessory use structure that shall not exceed 2,000 square feet per acre and shall not exceed 10,000 total square feet. And so it's kind of the cumulative then, so potentially 10,000 square foot would be somebody that would have to own 5 acres. And if they only had 4 acres, then you knock off 2,000 square feet and so on, back down. So skipping ahead a little bit in the structure of these amendments before you, a question could be, well, what if somebody demands, just has to go larger than 10,000 square feet? We did put a provision in with these proposed amendments that would allow that to occur similar to the existing provision where someone has an accessory structure and wanted to go larger than the 2,000 square foot limit. It could start out through our owner consent process. If the owner consent process were to fail where an owner was unable to obtain all the signatures necessary from the adjacent property owners, it could be converted to a conditional use permit. So that is the proposed concept. The 3 rural residential zones that we have where this would become available potentially is 5R, which is the 5 acre minimum, RR, which is the 2 acre minimum, and then 1R, which is the 1 acre minimum. So in some instances, those smaller zones would be more self-limiting. So where someone would see potentially the max benefit of this would be in the 5R zoning. Occasionally you'll have somebody that might be zoned rural residential 2 acre and be sitting on, 10 or 12 acres. They might have to decide they want this big building or they wanna divide the property in the future, and it kind of gives another option for owners of rural properties and some of the hobby farmers that are out there that we seem to have a lot of. The other revisions within these 3 rural residential zones, if we were to look at the bottom of page 2, there's just some housekeeping on section 3.8.075 regarding the owner consent. There was some language stricken that was kind of redundant, and some clarification on artifact related to old fee schedule. And that basically carries through the format of the 3 rural residential zones are all the same. So looking at them, they're all very similar in format. And any question, discussion that we want to have on that before we move over onto the next proposed one? Okay, so the second proposed amendment is to Article 19C, which is the rural commercial zone. And the proposed amendment is to add a storage shed sales opportunity. And it is, there was a recent change that we previously had done to add mobile home and RV sales. And it fits under the permitted uses generally. And there's a permitted uses generally category that's a little bit more flexible. If you look at the permitted uses that are allowed, they're considered small scale, low impact, and they have a size limit of 3,000 square feet. So this next tier under the permitted uses generally gives a little bit more flexibility, doesn't have that same size limit, and so it allows, say, a property to have more expansive uses like the recent manufactured dwelling and RV sales, and now this proposed storage shed sales lot. And so again, that's not a lot of property within Douglas County that's zone CRE. It captures pre-existing pockets or island properties that were pre-existing commercial but had urban designations on them, and the state said, we can't have urban designations anymore outside of urban areas, so come up with a new zoning to capture those. But it does give some flexibility to potentially create new CRE zones, and so this would then give some more flexibility to add an additional use. So any questions or clarifications on that proposed one?
Is this more of a clarification than is it is it prohibited now, I guess?
You would argue that yes, right now if someone came to us instead and said that they wanted to
Do this.
sell tough sheds, we would say, oh, that's bad, but we'd say tough, out of luck. That's really a bad pun, but hey, I said it. So, on the record and everything.
When the softball is tossed, you must hit it.
Yes,
You know.
yes. So, recognizing there's been, we've been approached by somebody that was considering and looking at properties,
It's
where
fine,
does
I
this
just-
fit in and.
Just curious if it's just more clarification or if it's already prohibited.
Just another opportunity, so similar to the first proposed one with rural property owners and hobby farm or ranchette, people managing those properties gives them some more flexibility. This would also give some more flexibility to add another use to that zone. And it seems to be in keeping with the rural nature, you know, we have
That's fine.
properties that I think could lend themselves to that and still be in keeping with the spirit and intent of that zone.
Okay.
All right. The next, this is some housekeeping, really internal, so it's not one that is a amendment that would affect property owners per se. It's regarding the planning department and how our code currently reads that we don't have, we do not charge an application fee to other county departments. And it's just housekeeping to allow there to be some discretion by the planning director as to whether or not we can waive fees or not. And so we may be able to charge certain departments fees now in the future moving forward. So that's kind of very much internal housekeeping on that one. And the last one affects several zones, but it is item number 4, sign code amendments. And it is to amend all existing zoning articles with sign standards which allow illumination but have restrictions on it, and it's to allow or recognize modern signs, the reader board style signs. We had looked at potentially a whole new sign code that's on hold for now, may be tabled for the immediate future. I'm not sure if it'll come back or not, but we did recognize that there was a need to embrace the technology while still having some sideboards or parameters on reader boards and looking at it from the standpoint of traffic safety. So we proposed an amendment that where the zones allow for illuminated signs not capable of movement, flashing, or blinking, we've provided that electronic reader boards shall be allowed for public schools, government facilities, public agencies, or community centers. And that the proposed reader boards shall be reviewed for compatibility with surrounding land use to mitigate adverse impacts to adjacent uses or zones and to minimize distraction to motorists. And so auditing our code, I'll just go through what zones will be affected and provide this flexibility for these reader board style. And that is, the first one is section 3.7.150, which is the PR Public Reserve Zone. The next one is section 3.15.150, that's the C1 Limited Commercial Zone. We then have the Tourist Commercial CT, which is section 3.16.150. We move to then the Rural Commercial Zones, the first of which is Rural Community Service Center, CRS, that's section 3.19A.200. And then the Rural Community Commercial Zone, 3.19B.200. And lastly, the CRE, which I've mentioned before, was the rural commercial, so that's section 3.19C. And there's one extra one that then is 3.22.150. And so that gives some flexibility for the M3 zone as well. So I think it's a good recognition. You know, we have a land use ordinance that was written and code that was written and adopted in the early 80s. So it had no anticipation of technology and reader board style signs, but I think they can be done in a way that is promoting the message to get out, especially when a lot of these are being proposed by schools or fire districts. And it lets the message get out, but we can do it in a way where it's not flashing and distracting motorists is the ultimate goal. So unless there's any questions on that last proposed amendment, that would conclude the spring, I'll call it spring/early summer Ludo amendments.
Remind the process with this, first reading, or how does this go?
Well, so if you so choose, with any legislative hearing, you would be making a recommendation. And then the recommendation would be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners, who ultimately would then be having a hearing and making a decision.
So we just review that now, basically, and then.
Yes, so you could
so we
make
go. Okay.
make a recommendation.
I know too, Jeff, we talked about the covenant piece. Is that gonna be included with this on that first portion, for that recommendation to the Board of Commissioners? An internal piece that's kind of.
That's kind of an internal
Okay.
piece.
Okay.
But I think that's something you could certainly mention for the record, that if there was some concerns with approving a farm accessory building for animal, say a barn riding arena, whatever someone might choose to do for that larger size building, that there be perhaps a mechanism like a covenant in place to let everyone know. So
I think it'd be worthwhile, but I'll wait to see what we get for a motion here, and then we'll go from there.
great, thank you.
So do I have a motion?
Well, you just need a motion to pass it up to the commissioners?
Basically,
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Please.
are you putting the, do we have the covenant piece on there, or are you guys gonna leave that off?
I don't think we need it.
No.
I'm good.
So
Yeah,
I
and that's
guess-
something staff can work through
Okay.
as we.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Just, I'd like to reiterate, I think it is important that the covenants be considered by the
Yeah,
commissioners.
And I appreciate that for record and for us as staff to discuss and work out moving forward.
I mean, it clearly states it in the, I think it just adds another tool. And I
Yes.
guess that doesn't really belong in here, but I think something you guys can work on, so.
Mhm.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, passes. Alright, I'll go back here. I jumped the gun earlier, so no business from the audience. There's no one here. Anything from the planning commission? One tidbit, I don't know, Jeff can talk about it. We did see that the Pegasus project looks like it might be back in the works, but we'll see.
No way.
I guess time will tell. Business from the planning department. Jeff?
Thank you, Chair Burke. There's a couple of agenda items for July. We have another land department request before you, which is just a zone change, and it is regarding a property in Scottsburg that is zoned PR, but it's basically, it's not being really utilized as a park property, so they're just looking at it as surplus property. But like Tony Page mentioned earlier in speaking to the request this evening, as an appraiser, they kind of look at what highest and best use is, and that's partly from a saleability too, is and getting comparables, and it's hard to get comparables for properties that are zoned PR, public reserve, so
Why is that?
Yeah.
So that one is just the zone change though, because it has an underlying plan designation of committed lot of record based on the platting of Scottsburg's community way back when.
Long time ago.
Yeah, lots of little lots actually. They're more urban sized lots, but they don't have, it's not an urban area. So that one will be before you, and then we'll have a referral. There is a request by a solar company to put in a solar farm on 11 acres of, I don't remember the size of the property, but 11-acre portion of a much larger property down in South County. And during the initial notice, there were a lot of people speaking out in opposition to that. We actually had a planning advisory committee meeting, and that attracted a lot of people. There was a news review article. There's actually been a couple news review articles, but that one's been referred to you all for next month. So that's
Would a solar farm then sell the electricity to the grid? Is that the?
Yes, yep, so there's a provision in the exclusive farm use zones. This is a farm grazing property, and their application seems straightforward as far as, I think you have a company that knows how to address all the approval criteria, but you still have, I think, the opposition that sees it as not in my backyard. So it on the one hand can appear very straightforward. Here's all the I's dotted and T's crossed. Here's how we've met all the approval criteria. But you're gonna have concerns from neighbors about things related to compatibility. So it'll be a tough one because it's conditionally permitted use and compatibility.
Anyway, it's in the neighborhood.
Yeah. That is
That
it
it?
for planning department business.
All right, well then I'll call this meeting to close. Meeting closed.